Welcome to the MSDW Podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. My guest today is Josh Greenbaum of Enterprise Application Consulting. Josh has been around the software business for decades at this point, and he's seen the enterprise software market evolve over that time, first as a journalist and now as an independent analyst who works with software buyers to evaluate and select solutions that are a good bet for a successful outcome. Josh looks at the battle among ERP and CRM vendors differently than most people, whereas some of us tend to track the product roadmap, partner sentiment, customer outcomes after the fact. Josh instead is analyzing the future prospects for a company weighing its investment options in a hotly contested marketplace of business ideas, product vision, and technical competence. He recently wrote a scathing article describing what he sees as Microsoft's fall in the enterprise software space to a new low of what he calls missing in action. He and other analysts are simply not getting enough access to the product team to make a confident assessment, he says. As a result, Microsoft and its partners are losing out on opportunities that they should be competing for. We talk with Josh about the analyst role, how Microsoft has changed over the last couple of years, and where he would like to see it go from here. All right, Josh Greenbaum, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks.
So I was excited to get the opportunity to schedule this with you. You recently, and the main reason was because of an article, an essay that you recently wrote that got my attention. I think got some other people's attention in the dynamics, who watch the dynamic space, people who perhaps work in the dynamic space. It sounds like you did a little bit of thinking about really where you find the platform. And so I thought it was really just something that I'd certainly appreciate the chance to get more of your thoughts on as someone who, so I'm not paid by Microsoft. Media essentially, and that's how Microsoft treats me. You are an analyst, and I know have been for many years, but maybe we could just start by, you could tell us a little bit more about your work with Microsoft or watching Microsoft.
So, okay, Jason, happy to do that. And, I can honestly say I go back 30 years with Microsoft. It's something to that order. I was around when Windows first came out. I've been followed the rise of SQL Server. I followed, obviously was there when, the acquisitions that led to the Dynamics brand family occurred. So I go way back with this company. Obviously, I was mostly because I was a journalist before I was an industry analyst, and you can't kind of cover tech without Microsoft. So I've been watching this movie for a long, long time and seen that the good, the bad, the ugly, and have been of late very focused on Dynamics for a number of reasons. Partly it is my bias that enterprise software is the most important thing on the planet, but also because Microsoft has really emerged in the last couple of years as an extremely potent force in the enterprise. I like to say that, Apple is where Microsoft was 5 years ago, and Microsoft is where Apple was 5 years ago, and that's meant to be really positive for Microsoft and not particularly positive for Apple. But this is a company with a lot of great technology, a lot of great innovations, and yet they're missing the ball on something pretty important.
What one of your main points in your article, I immediately recognized it and agreed with it, and it's something I've thought of for the last couple of years, which was, I guess, the lack of sort of a marketing voice for Dynamics, or the way it seems to have sort of died off. At sort of the highest levels where it should be, like maybe to your point, they should be screaming it from the rooftops. They should be using it as a place to hold up an example of what the company's capable of. Does that summarize, or is that in line with what you were trying to say?
I think absolutely. And this was the case for a while, mm-hmm. And I think it's sort of, that particularly as Azure moved forward with its capabilities, Dynamics became really, the showcase for what you can do with everything, that Microsoft has. It all sort of funnels up to some of the things that Dynamics offers to customers. And, as a showcase for all of Microsoft, Dynamics was pretty much the only game in town. I think also, the other thing that's just from a market dynamic standpoint, there is this moment in the market where ERP software in particular, but the enterprise in general is really shifting to the cloud. There's some, NetSuite was bought by Oracle. That was a very, seminal moment in the industry. A lot of people think NetSuite and Oracle are vulnerable. I'm one of them. And so it's in a way, and I think pointed this out in my blog post, it's kind of a crying shame that Microsoft's not stepping up to an opportunity here that would be good for its customers, good for its brand, and like I always say, make the competition in the industry more lively and therefore better for everyone.
I mean, what is or how would you describe the sort of analyst relationship, not you individually, but maybe the overall analyst relationship with the Dynamics product line today, and how has it changed over the last few years?
Well, I can't fault the personal side of it. The folks who run the analyst relations team over there are good people. They certainly are trying hard, but the mandate from on high is really one of neglect and frankly, I use the term missing in action. There was a time, and this is under previous administrations, when there was a very, very active analyst program, very active go-to-market program. There were annual meetings. There was a lot of information flow. And, just to make sure everybody listening understands, we don't just collect this information because we love it and we love to gather information. You and I both.
Yeah.
We do it because we provide a service. I provide a service actually similar to yours. I try to keep a market informed of what's going on. I do something more direct, which is I'm actually advising individual customers and partners and potential ecosystem members about what is good, what's bad, what's competitive in the market. And this is where we're ultimately in the marketplace of ideas. Dynamics is missing in action. I used to be able to answer the question, what's new, what's exciting, what's the latest, what's important, where's this company going, how does it sit strategically, is it a good bet, would I want to put my IT dollars into Dynamics? Always an important question. Now myself and my fellow analysts, we operate in a vacuum. It's very possible that there's one or two firms who shall remain nameless that always get access because they're so massive. But people who think that independent analysts like myself and people who work for smaller firms, if you think we have no influence, you're really missing the boat. I would argue that a good analyst relations program could pay for itself in positive deal flow if it were done right and if the products are good enough, many times over. And you don't just drive that out of relationships with one or two top tier analyst firms.
Yeah, I have to say I had noticed that coverage of Dynamics on analyst blogs, your own and other people's who I run into and I see at events that aren't just analyst events, the ones that I go to as well, the conferences primarily. It's slowed down to a trickle. I mean, there's not nearly as much writing about it as there used to be. Other analysts who I talk to aren't as informed as they used to be, and I didn't honestly give it too much thought. I just was paying attention to other things. But I think that the annual analyst event isn't there, and it is a new administration, and it's funny from what you say that you're really not commenting when you say that to my ear on the products themselves. It's really just the information, the depth of vision that you get or insight that you get in your role interfacing with Microsoft. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, I think the products are doing rather well, and I have my other ways of finding out. But having that steady information stream was what really, what is missing. So yeah, my commentary is mostly about what is that marketplace of ideas enabling, and right now it's not enabling a lot. So from a product standpoint, this isn't a critique of product at all, or the people who work there, or even Scott Guthrie, who maybe bears some responsibility for this information vacuum. It's more of saying, geez, guys, stop missing a great opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, I remain hopeful that that they can find a new sort of marketing leader to step up and do what they used to do with who was it? Well, I mean, there was Kirill, and then alongside him there was always someone who sort of took the lead of marketing message, right? I mean, and that
They've
was
always had pretty strong marketing. Yeah, I
there
certainly,
was Fritz Studer, and before him, I'm sure there was someone I'm not thinking of, but there was always that voice at the top. And now it is, I mean, to my mind, because I probably follow it much more on a day-to-day basis than you do, but I mean, there's people at the individual product level who talk about the things that you'd probably like to hear, but they're not making it. It's not a broader message, I would say. And I think the new release, like the new plans for a July release on the CRM side, is a great example of that. I mean, there's some very, very compelling stuff there that, I hope Microsoft would be jumping on for like the Inspire event in a couple weeks, but I have no way. I mean, it's possible they won't, and it's possible they won't build any media campaigns around it. I mean, it's very likely they won't, but they could. I mean, I certainly think they could.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, certainly I haven't been contacted, but let me emphasize also that this isn't just about product, and this is where my job as an analyst gets to be complicated. My customers want to make safe bets; they want to make the right bet. That's not just a product decision. That's a partnership decision. That's a company decision. And if I'm doing my job right, I have to be able to report on the state of the company. How well are they? Are they really going to execute correctly? If they want to move to the cloud, here's a classic one. The product can be in the cloud. Are the partners ready? Who are these partners? Is there a program to make sure that when push comes to shove, there's the right kind of support, there's the right kind of emphasis on quality, there's all the other things beside product that really make or break an implementation. And to be frank, I don't know the answer to that. I think it's within the realm of possibility that the neglect that we're seeing on this outbound marketing side, it has some analog on the inside of Microsoft. That would be worrisome. I would have to be put a sort of a cautionary tone to some of my recommendations. Is that's a great product, but I don't know everything else that's going on, including the fact that executive neglect is never good for keeping a product moving forward in a competitive fashion.
Do you want to see Microsoft leading more when it comes to sales and deployment? Like you said, deployment may be sort of the larger vision of how Microsoft, how their products can become part of solutions that companies can count on. Right now, there's so much in the partner channel. Is that a point against them compared to maybe some of their major competitors?
Well, it's a complicated world out there. I mean, if the partner channel is both, the best thing that's ever happened to Microsoft Dynamics, and it presents one of the biggest challenges. And I think that, I think the channel is a really good example of where Microsoft has to mix, great leadership with sort of, laissez-faire, let the channel be the channel. Mm-hmm. I think that, the move to the cloud is a major one that affects everybody, including channel partners. Not all channel partners are made equal. Not all, not every one of them can transition to the cloud. So I think there has to be some leadership there. But more importantly, and this is across the board, customers really are struggling with a multi-cloud, multi-platform world. It's not just one product. It's not just one cloud. It's shocking how many different back office cloud products there are, and even small and mid-sized companies. And the solution to this is bigger than any individual partner. Certainly, the traditional partners are, because these if you want to orchestrate processes across multiple cloud platforms, if you want to manage multiple cloud platforms, if you've got Dynamics over here and you may have Salesforce over there, and you may have Workday over here, you may have SAP in another corner, if you're large enough, you need somebody to step up to that and help you, the customer, manage that complexity. That's not an individual partner story. That's an enterprise story. That's something that I would expect Microsoft at a corporate level Microsoft at the services level to really look at, and frankly at the Azure level. And that's again where Azure has this potential for doing that. But if you don't have anyone articulating Azure's role as a potential solution to this multi-cloud, multi-platform complexity problem, no one will, it won't happen. And right now, I don't see Microsoft, any spokesperson for that, anybody who can say, we at Azure understand what the real world is like. It's going to be complex, and we will step up and help. We're not just going to, hope that our partners someday, come to the dance.
Yeah, do you think Microsoft, and maybe in comparison to some of its competitors, pushing ERP in the cloud, CRM in the cloud, too much? Are buyers still have any? Do you think buyers still have any hesitation there when they're thinking long term?
Well, I think long term the die is cast. It's more how long is long? Mm-hmm. What does that term look like? And clearly there is there's a lot of good reasons for enterprises of all sizes to move to the cloud, but obviously the bigger you are, the more legacy you carry forward, the more the cloud is not something you just flip a switch and go to. I think that and I was actually impressed, and these are the bits and pieces that come out, that again aren't necessarily articulated for the enterprise as well as they could be. But Azure Stack is now available as an on-premise solution. You can essentially run Azure as a managed solution on-premise inside your own firewall, and that's a recognition of the fact that the real world, particularly of larger enterprises, is one in which hybrid is going to be dominant for the foreseeable future. In a world in which COBOL is still being used and mainframes are still running major corporations, there's no doubt that we'll live in a hybrid world, and the global economy will not shift to the cloud overnight. So there is, I think there's a recognition that this is there, but customers want that leadership. They really want to understand where everybody is going in the cloud, because everyone's coming after them. And most importantly, in any individual enterprise stack, and whether, again, that's Microsoft versus Salesforce versus Workday versus SAP versus Infor, et cetera, they all present not just product but platform. And platform adds a level of complexity to anybody's buying decision. So you have to be able to articulate this cloud platform story, as much as possible, because that buying cycle is much longer than the app cycle. It's a much more complex concept to say I'm gonna now implement a platform like Azure. So I think leading with cloud is good. I think that assuming that means everyone's going to convert to cloud tomorrow is a false assumption. I don't think Microsoft's making that mistake. But again, honestly, I'm not sure I know exactly what the what's going on in the from their standpoint, because they're not talking.
Yeah, and I think to get back to an important point you made, there's a lot of technology that seems to be sort of bubbling up to the surface and maturing at Microsoft now, but I'm not sure there's anyone putting the pieces together to make the case that you're talking about, whether it's I'll give you an example. Like there's the next release of CRM, and maybe you read this around the press, but the platform itself will really start to become apparently really separated out from apps. And to me, that lends a possibility when you combine that with some of the sort of federated technology they want to add in. There's some and common data service, that there's some real possibilities there that haven't really been fully elaborated on. But there's also almost zero. There's no one sort of pushing. Here's why we're doing these things, and here's who's going to be able to make it into something that fits into your enterprise architecture in the next 3 years or 5 years. That's still missing. It's like you can kind of imagine the pieces going together, but I don't know that there's anyone there yet really pushing it or really selling it.
Well, yeah, look, I had a briefing with Jujar Singh, who runs CRM relatively recently, and you're right. I mean, the product vision is there. It's impressive, but that was I wrote my blog post 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's not enough time.
It was actually an hour. Forgive me for the emission, but an hour in 2 years isn't really a lot. And more importantly, as you just said, all that great product begs the question of now what?
Right.
What's next? How do I integrate that? Am I going to, how does that work with the rest of my Dynamics ERP? Or again, if I'm an Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, whatever customer, now what? Those stories need to be told as well.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about another point that you made in your article, which was this idea of Dynamics solutions as sort of an attack vector, or sort of a foot in the door for Microsoft sales to open up a broader sales opportunity for especially at the enterprise level. Was your point there that was a tactic that was, you think, was working in the past and maybe has sort of faded away?
It's certainly, from a messaging standpoint, it was working. From a market standpoint, I certainly have met individual customers who found those messages very compelling. There was a point where they really stopped breaking out any numbers about aggregate win-loss rates, about even general revenue. So it's hard to put a number on how well that stuff was working on the aggregate. But I think Dynamics has the opportunity to really be the showcase for everything that that Microsoft wants to do. And again, that's why in the blog post I particularly sort of was pointing out that there's this was at Build, the developer conference, the place where any vendor, all vendors, when they go to their developer conferences, they're pushing the idea that I got the best toy kit sandbox you would ever want to build the coolest apps. Just sign on with me. And they're missing this incredible chunk of functionality called Dynamics. I didn't hear a word about it on the Analyst Day.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Build's not something I even follow because I know just from writing a publication focused on Dynamics, the products themselves aren't really in focus there. There aren't going to be announcements per se, but in terms of building those relationships, boy, yeah, I mean, there are companies that would give their right arm or maybe both arms to get in front of that audience, as you pointed out.
Yeah, and if, as I said earlier, I mean every enterprise software vendor is a platform vendor, and to be a platform vendor, you have to have this army of developers who wake up in the middle of the night with a cool idea and go, I am going to build it on platform XYZ because platform XYZ has been identified to them as the best place to do this. I think I cited in this piece, the actually a customer that I met that had done exactly that. In fact, gone with some Microsoft tools because the individual leading the project was a Microsoft MVP, and that's what he wanted to work with. That particular customer happened to be a very large SAP customer as well. There are a whole bunch of SAP tools these people could have used. They went with the Microsoft tools because they had the developer connection. That stickiness is you just can't overestimate how valuable that stickiness is, because that's an app that will lead to more apps that will get deeper and deeper and deeper. They'll bring in all that all the cool machine learning and AI, IoT, bots, you name it. That whole funnel of coolness that again is represented in a place like Build is going to flow potentially through that one app that one guy made, and that was because he had that connection as a developer to Microsoft, and he was an enterprise guy. He wasn't building consumer apps. He was building deep in the woods enterprise apps. And why would Microsoft want to miss having those opportunities? I don't get it.
Yeah, well, that's what makes the MVPs kind of unique. Without too much prodding, they will take the technology and they will often combine it with some business vision and really impress people with it, which is desperately needed. It's interesting. In other things that you write, Microsoft comes up a lot. I mean, I know you cover the whole realm of enterprise software, especially on the ERP side, right? And whether you're writing about SAP and their events or maybe Oracle. I mean, you like to draw comparisons, right? And Microsoft still seems to be on your mind as one of those people to always consider. That's my sense anyway, that it's not totally forgotten.
Oh no, I think quite honestly, Microsoft is one of the top most potent forces in enterprise software today, bar none. I mean, I got no problem making that statement. I think they've done a really, really good job overall. And again, when I look at what Azure can do for the enterprise compared to Amazon AWS, I think Azure's definitely leapfrogged AWS in some very, very powerful functionality. So yeah, I think they're they are a contender. Could they do a better job? Absolutely. Could they particularly do a better job with a product line that, in my opinion, is just languishing behind some corporate neglect that I'm still scratching my head around. That needs to be improved. That should be improved. It's at the end of the day, my job really, and I think your job too, is to we want customers to thrive. We want the customer world to make the best choices, to understand the best technology, to reward good companies with good technology with their with their dollars, and frankly punish those who don't get it right. That dynamic is something I want. You can't have monopolies and make that work. You've got to have a rich competitive environment where there's someone like Dynamics pushing on someone like SAP, who's pushing on someone like Oracle, who's pushing on sales. These guys all make everybody better by the competition, and therefore the customer wins. And that's what I'm looking for, is the customers to win. Right now they could I can't even help them on Dynamics. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, boy, that's that really is kind of startling to hear. Yeah, but I do agree with you. I mean, I can't cover the dynamic space if it's not a vibrant and successful ecosystem, and it has been. I mean, I've been covering it since very late 2007, maybe 2008. So post Great Plains acquisition,
right.
I kind of came in after that into the space, but yeah, I mean, it has been a consistently growing and thriving ecosystem. I mean, of course, it's had some ups and downs, in that time. But my biggest fear, I think, is that it does turn too far inward. That's always been my fear, just for like sort of the health of the product and frankly, for the ability to cover it. And one of those things for me was, and I think you touched on this as well, but the lack of sort of a dedicated Microsoft event focused on it, I think was not something to underestimate. And shutting that down, it sort of was both symbolic but also sort of it was a tactical sort of element of what Microsoft stood for with Dynamics that maybe got lost, and maybe I don't know if the company underestimated it or just was shuffling its priorities around, but that sort of hurt that sort of. Because the internal community it does have a life of its own. There's people who they make their living on Dynamics, implementing it, selling it, customizing it. But if there's not sort of an influx of fresh customers, obviously, and sort of fresh ideas and fresh energy from developers, like you said, it will start to get a little murky.
Yeah, I certainly heard from partners who agreed with that blog post. They're getting a little antsy here. There's a lot of air cover for their competitors from the big the other enterprise software companies, in the form of marketing, in the form of events, and in the form of analyst outreach. I'm on my way this week to actually, it's interesting, to Salesforce's developer event. That's happening. I just came back from a couple of weeks on the road. I went to a number of SAP events. We've got I'll be in New York for Inforum. All their customers and partners will be in town. Those are folks who compete day in and day out on the partner level with Dynamics. They've got an event to go to. And we know, right, that the Microsoft struggled with this whole event structure and has been back and forth with Envision and Insight and Build, and I'm not even sure. Inspire, right? I'm not sure they know what they're doing with it. But at the end of the day, what I really don't understand is where is an enterprise software customer supposed to go?
Right.
What event are they supposed to attend?
Right. When Inspire, what was it? No, sorry. Envision kind of blew up after trying it for a second year. Yeah, there's sort of nothing now, which is really dangerous, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there is. I know they're working with the user groups, the AX and and GP and those guys. And I went to one of those events. I was the only analyst there. It was sort of a fluke. I was there to begin with. That was a pretty lively event.
Which one? Do you remember which one that was? I don't remember seeing, because I do go to a lot of those too.
You wouldn't have been invited. I only got there. I mean, it's a long story why I was there, and it's not that, it's somewhat under a different umbrella than my usual analyst work. But that was not. That was a customer event, but and frankly, a very good one and very dynamic, pun intended. But yeah, no press was invited, no analysts were invited. That was sort of under the radar.
Okay.
Why? I don't know why. How much? What's the cost of adding an analyst and press program to something like that relative to the potential? How many deals do you have to do? Net new deals,
right?
To be perfectly crass, to cost justify one of these programs. It's not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and those events are great events, and they're very informative for me and for the people who attend, whether it's a user event or a partner event. But I've been going to those before Convergence and since Convergence, and they're just not the same in my view. I mean, for Microsoft to plan an event like a Convergence, or even the final year of Envision, or the only year of Envision, there's just something qualitatively different about what you get from it in terms of Microsoft. Like you said when we started, setting a tone and setting a sort of a set of ambitions and goals that people are going to start evaluating the company against. They send a lot of staff to some other events now, but it's just not. They don't own it, and they don't. It's not. It doesn't have the same mark of their thought on it.
Yeah, and you and I both go to these events, and we listen with one ear to the official keynotes, but boy, we're pounding the pavement, talking to the partners, talking to the customers, getting the real story or the inside story as well, and that mix of ideas and people is absolutely essential to tell a complete story. I think I said this already, but I need to be able to answer questions other than what is the product. I like to say that all the great ideas in marketing go to the field to die. What is the field, doing? What's happening at the customer interface with these products and these new ideas is absolutely essential to understand beyond just here's my product. And product companies don't like to think that that's important, but it absolutely, you can't sell product without that big context, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree, and almost everyone who buys software that in the six-figure range know there's more to the story than what's coming out of the product manager's voice. Right.
I'd like them to compete in the marketplace of ideas. I'd like to have an event where I can, me and my peers, and I would include my peers in the press as well as in the analyst community, can really sit down with the executives and hear the big story. I think they got to bring back these face-to-face events. And that's the other thing. I got a little concerned when the analyst team announced, actually at Build, that they were going to have a portal. There's now an analyst portal I can go to get all kinds of printed and printed, and videos and content about product. An analyst portal, it does not make an analyst program.
That is not what analysts
we don't want that.
Get value out of.
Yeah, and the companies that do that are companies that don't succeed. So I'm very concerned about that. I think you got to bite the bullet, get the executives involved, and frankly, first of all, get someone who's really, their job is to make Dynamics great again and do something about it, because it's otherwise they should sell it. Sell it. I can think of a couple of great buyers. I wouldn't mind helping broker that deal. But give it to someone who really wants to take it and run with it, because the alternative is not good for anyone.
All right. Yeah. Bring back the fall analyst event. Bring back convergence, bring back sort of that personal connection between. And I was impressed for a while the way I would see, Microsoft executives sort of interacting with you and your peers in the analyst community. I mean, there were real relationships there, from what I could tell. Real discussions going on. It was not. I don't know. It was deeper than just press conferences.
It wasn't fake news. It was real.
And there were tough questions being asked.
Substantive. Well, Kirill got it. And in particular, but even before Kirill, I mean, there was definitely, there's some of the brightest minds, in the industry are there inside Dynamics, and for the most part, my relationship, was one of honesty and quality all around. I think they've got the chops for it.
And you've really been on both sides. I mean, you've done work directly for Microsoft, right? And you also work for buyers now.
Yep.
Yeah, and I my hope was a couple of years ago when Kirill left, and as you explained in your piece, the responsibility for the products fell under Cloud and Enterprise. I think the hope was that the products had enough momentum, they had enough sort of experts within Microsoft that could kind of keep the good stuff going forward in a positive way and not really lose momentum. But I think that has happened, and it's nothing wrong with admitting that.
I want to put blame on. I'm going to sort of throw it at Satya, who knows better. He used to run Dynamics. He's got two great executives in there. Sri Srinivasan, Jujhar Singh. Are absolutely the
Mike
creme de la
Ehrenberg.
creme. Yeah, Ehrenberg. These are people who could hold their own with anybody in the enterprise software space. And for on ideas and on just general smarts. The spokespeople are there. Give them a pulpit and let them go.
Yeah, and with the products now falling under James, both the ERP and CRM sides falling under James Phillips. I mean, there's a new opportunity for that. With I think all of those product teams reporting to him. We'll see if that signifies any sort of a change.
Yep. So. Yeah. It's we'll challenge James. Let him see what he can do with it.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on. I always enjoy reading what you write, even if it's not about Dynamics, whether it's SAP or like you mentioned, some of those other product lines that you're always on the road for and digging deep into. It's always a pleasure to stay up to date with what you're hearing.
And likewise, I read your work as well, and you keep me in some of the details I can't keep track of myself.
Excellent. Well, I hope we can do this again soon when there's new developments and maybe a new conference sometime down the line.
Yeah, man. Let's hope. I'll see you at the next Dynamics conference. How do you like that?
All right. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Right. This has been another edition of the MSDW Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. My thanks also to Josh Greenbaum for joining us today for a great conversation. If you have any feedback, please contact me directly, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World signing off.
So get on